Howdy, howdy, everybody. Welcome back to Cause Before Symptom. I am your esteemed guest host, Urban. It is the 16th of June. I also received confirmation from Pastor Carner, James. He'll be back tomorrow. He'll be back for the show tomorrow. So tonight we're going to cover an interesting text called Haunted Media, Electronic Presence from Telegraphy to Television. Boots, is funny. As soon as I was sitting there, while the intro was playing, and I was like, I haven't seen Boots in a few shows, because the last couple shows that I was here, I didn't see you. I guess maybe you were busy or something. And then as soon as I, thought it, as soon as it went through my head, I saw you in the comments. You're like, glad to be back. So how's it going, Boots? Nice to see you. We have some people on Substack. Nice to see everybody. We've got R. Gertison. We have... yeah, R. Gertison and Burt's. R. Gertison and Burt's. R. Gertison and Boots. Boots says, let's all hit the like button to help our host. Thank you. I appreciate it. Definitely do that. It helps me out if you like my video. If you like James's video, it helps James out on the Cause Before Symptom. I'm filling in for him while he's out of town. He'll be back. He's on a out-of-town trip that he had to take last minute. So I fill in for as a guest host whenever he's out of town. But I'm also streaming on my platforms as well. I'm streaming on YouTube. I'm streaming on Rumble. We're on Twitch. We're on Twitter, or sorry, X. For some reason, it's stuck in my head. I always call it Twitter. We're on Substack and Odyssey. So we're on quite a few places. And then this is going to go up on Spotify as well. It's going to go up on podcast players. So... yes, and wherever applicable, please do hit the like button, follow the channel. It's always greatly appreciated. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to just go through, this is a text that I discovered from that interview. Maybe a few of you who were here the other night, I played a clip. Let me move myself out of the way. Yeah, we watched a clip from this interview by Things Visible and Invisible on YouTube. It's called "The Internet Was Never Just Technology," and it's funny because this came across my feed as we get all these different feeds and they're very personalized now. But it was right before I was going to host the show, and I was listening to it. I was like, man, this is so applicable to everything we've talked about over, like, I don't know, the last 2 weeks that I've been on and off hosting for James. And so this was a text that was recommended. It's by Jeffrey Sconce. Jeffrey Sconce. Haunted Media, Electronic Presence from Telegraphy to Television. Boots says, last couple nights I've just listened to the show from St. Rose, St. Martin Hospital. Wife suffered a stroke, 6 out of 10, so been almost living there. Man, I'm sorry to hear that, buddy. I really was hoping that there was no, because it's to the point. So for the people who don't know, Boots is a regular who has been pretty much, I'd say at 90% of, he's been there every night for James's channel, James Carner's channel, Cause Before Symptom. And that's why if he's not there, you start to worry. You're like, man, the person, oh, they're always here, so hopefully not, they're not here unless there's an emergency. So I'm sorry to hear that. I hope everything improves. I hope you get some good news soon, and we'll be praying for you, buddy. But I'm glad you're here, and I really think it's an honor to James. I mean, if you're still so dedicated to listen to the show, if you're in the hospital and stuff like that, so that's really makes us feel good about not having a huge audience. I really am grateful that I don't have a huge audience. I've been trapped on Substack. So I was fortunate enough over the last year, pretty much, maybe 6 to 8 months, to have a great increase in traffic. But then over the last month and a half, I've been in between 19,000 and 20. I haven't hit 20,000 yet, so I can't, because I've been waiting to, like, thanks everybody for 20,000, and I was keep checking back and back and back. And I'm like, man, I feel like I've been in 19,000 forever. And so I'll go up by 100 or 200 subscribers on Substack, and then I'll go down by 100 or 200. So I don't know if the only excuse that I can make for it is maybe there's a lot of AI traffic, bot traffic. Maybe they're deleting, just fraudulent emails. And if that's the case, that's fine. I don't want, bots in my email list. That, by all means, that's fine. But I don't know. So yeah, this text, Jeffrey Sconce, Haunted Media. Jeffrey Sconce's book, Haunted Media, investigates the historical evolution of electronic presence, exploring how Americans have conceptualized the living and often uncanny nature of telecommunications from the telegraph to the dawn of the digital age. By examining a series of cultural myths and anecdotes ranging from haunted television sets to paranoid delusions, Sconce argues that electronic presence is a social construct that reflects our changing relationship with technology rather than an inherent property of the machines themselves. He identifies a recurring fascination with the transmutable flow of electricity, information, and consciousness, which has historically fueled fantasies of disembodiment, anthropomorphism, and the existence of sovereign electronic worlds. Ultimately, the text seeks to explain why we continue to attribute mystical or supernatural powers to material technologies, tracing a shift from an early interest in the paranormal capabilities of hardware to a modern obsession with the immersive power of simulated textuality. R. Gertison says, "Oh man, Boots, I'm so sorry to hear. If you need any support, you should let R. Gertison know." So definitely, if you do need it, if you're fortunate enough to have somebody that can do that for you, it almost is one of those things where it's like, man, just lucked out. Maybe we got to have each other's back, So it's nice of you to offer that. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure James does as well. That's something that's just so rare now in this world, is because for a lot of regular, like, to be fair, a lot of people move to go to their jobs, or like they have to move somewhere else, which means that just in the last 100 years, people have scrambled more than they ever have. And so a lot of times it's like people want to be able to do that, but their family lives in another state or something. So it's just gotten so it's foreign, it's just like something, it's like, wow, look at that. And in the area that I'm from in Ohio, there's a small Amish population. And just to the point where, like, if you venture out around the area that I'm in, you see them. And it's very interesting. But if you ever like are near them, especially if like they have their kids or something with them, the Amish children will like just kind of stare at you. It's like they're so intrigued, they just kind of stare at you. They're looking at an alien being, basically. And it's just kind of funny because the Amish arguably just had it right the whole time. I don't know why. It's like, I feel like people don't want to admit that. So many people don't want to admit that. But I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of secrecy and occult abuse that goes on. That's true, but not everywhere. Some are on the up and up, some are not. I mean, when you're not using technology, you have a lot of time. It's like, if you want to fill your time up, maybe just dedicate it to like a business or something, and they do. And usually they do pretty well. And it's like their whole thing, their whole religion supposedly is like, we don't want to adopt technology. We think it's evil. And everybody's like, oh, they're crazy. The technology is evil. And then here we are reading June 16th, 2026. Oh, 2026 has been a year for the Amish. They're getting all the confirmation. But here we are reading a book about haunted technology. So it's like they stated the purpose, and the purpose was just factually seeming to be more and more correct. I mean, it's crazy. Just, for instance, like additives in the food, being able to produce their own food, being able to sustain themselves, not having to, pay for a car. You understand, individual car ownership was a big thing in the USA. You know, the USA is notorious for not having a good like public transportation, or no, it doesn't have sidewalks and stuff like that. It's because when they built the interstate highway system, they pretty much tore out as much of the old world, quote unquote, as possible, and they rebuilt it based on a model where everybody is going to have to own their own car. It's like, now we're going to build a society, and the society is going to be geared to people who do this. And so if you don't do that, you're getting left behind. But the more you start to dig, they had electric trolley systems that were really, really, really advanced and worked really well. And they got rid of those in favor of, gas busing, pretty much widespread in the US at least, and pretty much around the world as well. But more fascinating was these, I guess you could call them, they're like trains, but not full-size locomotives. And they would take people from, area to area, maybe from certain city to city, town to town. Some of them were pretty advanced, but they only existed for like a period of 50 years. They like built them and then they got rid of them. It's just crazy the more you dig. It's really crazy. And it's crazy because you can't find answers, which is probably the most haunting part of it all. So I've also got a bunch of different links here. This is links to other posts that we've covered or subjects that we've covered. So we're going to talk about the trinity of electronic presence, understanding the three flows of media. Flow. So this is interesting. I put this together as I was working on the series over probably the last month or two. That the age of Aquarius is perplexingly an air sign. I know that confuses people, but Aquarius is actually an air sign. And so the currency system, money is water, currency, the maritime law, and law of the sea. Well, water is no longer the thing. Now it's air. And so it seems, let's see if I can go back up. Here it is. Electricity, information, and consciousness. Those three things can be summed up by saying that information is oxygen. Information is going to be the air element for the age of Aquarius. That's why the World Wide Web was probably the catalyzing event more than anything else, was this idea that now everybody is going to be hooked up to this thing. Because it's like I was very surprised to see like my grandparents actually get as far into technology as they did, just because they hadn't for so long until very recently, actually, within the last 10 years. And certain people that I never really imagined would get there, but I still do remember other people in my extended family who have already, since passed away, who had never touched any electronic devices, never touched a computer, never touched a cell phone. They had landlines in their house. So I've seen kind of a peak of it. But it's crept very far into everybody's life, to the fact, or to the point now that it's commonplace for people from continent to have friendships, this, stable friendships. Before, you have to write correspondence, and then it would probably be a very long, intensive process to get that letter to somebody in China from the United States. But now we can just text or use internet messaging It's fascinating how you can befriend or I don't know, play a game, a multiplayer match with somebody and develop a uh, understanding of that person and who they are and interact with them. And then that two people, a person from the United States and a person from China, could also be in a multiplayer match with somebody from New Zealand. I mean, maybe the time zones are hard to match up, but you get my point. My point is that this has never happened before, ever, and this is the one unique catalyzing thing, and it's happened very recently, probably with arguably within our lifetimes. So, and then all of the ancient texts get shared, and that is kind of what's brought this system into being. So, information is oxygen. That's what you need to remember. The living nature of media. In the early 1950s, the cultural reception of television was punctuated by a series of uncanny ruptures that suggested the medium was far more than an assemblage of vacuum tubes and cathode rays. So interesting. There was a book that was recommended, four arguments against the elimination of television. I think that was the right number. But yes, when television was still rather new, or at least when it was starting to become like widely adopted, kind of like what I was referring to with the internet. A lot of people, and is what this is referring to here, a lot of people did take note of that. We recall Frank Walsh, the television assassin, who in 1952 found his dissociative relationship with a set so unbearable that he stilled it with a .38 caliber revolver, an act of obviously self-defense against an intruding house guest that prompted Jack Gould to remark that Walsh's work had barely started. There was Richard Gowan, I think that's how you say it, the professional justice man who felt so personally slandered by the flickering phantoms of a CBS studio that he sought to murder the medium's personnel with kitchen knives. Finally, we must consider the Travers family, whose set became a site of haunting when the frozen face of a singer refused to vanish even after the machine was unplugged. These are not merely anecdotes of psychosis. They are the founding mythemes of a culture that perceives electronic media as animate, sentient, and profoundly alive. The central paradox of our age lies in the persistent tendency to ascribe psychical agency to material machines, treating these objects of glass and wire as metadigestic, confidants, or malevolent entities. So what's the definition of liveness? Liveness transcends the technicality of direct broadcast. It is a larger, discursive sense that all programming is live action role play, by virtue of its instantaneous transmission. It is the phenomenological experience of a quote unquote, this is going on. Here's what we're talking about, what's going on in the world right now, rather than that has been, which is interesting. Once you start to look at, for instance, go back to the year 1900, very interesting to pay attention to what verbs they're using, what adjectives they're using. It's very complex. Most people would have to read a passage or hear them say it a few times and then probably ask for clarification. But if you're reading the words of somebody who's, passed away, you'd have to read the page a few times, or at least read the sentence a few times. And that's why it was very good idea to cover that bit of grammar that we did, the quantum grammar, because I think there is really a fascinating depth to that you can write a sentence in such a way that it can always be locked into what's happening right now. So there's no past, there's no future in quantum grammar syntax. Everything is centered around what is going on right now. It's called now time, because you've only been alive right now. There's never been a part in your life. There's never been a moment in any of our lives where we were unable to say that it's right now. This perception of a living presence is not a byproduct of content, but of the underlying metaphysics of flow. And it is worth saying that programming is as old as the medium. I remember Marshall McLuhan said the medium is the message. And that reminds me, speaking of, I've got a quote, another quote from him, Marshall McLuhan. He had some very interesting writings. And he had that fourfold law thing figured out. He had a whole thing about tetrads. I did a short video on Marshall McLuhan's writings, and it would be interesting to revisit them. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. Electric information environment being utterly ethereal fosters the illusion of a world as spiritual substance. It is now a reasonable copy of the mystical body, a blatant manifestation of the Antichrist. So it's worth looking up ethereal. Let's go to Webster's 1828. Let's look up ethereal. Formed of ether, containing or filled with ether as ethereal space, ethereal regions. Heavenly, celestial as ethereal messenger, consisting of ether or spirit. Spirit. So, arguably breath. I don't know. A vast chain of being which from God began. Nature's ethereal human angel man. Okay. Let's go to Webster's 1913 dictionary. Pertaining to the hypothetical upper purer air, or to the higher regions beyond the earth or beyond the atmosphere, celestial as ethereal space, ethereal regions, consisting of ether, exceedingly light or airy, tenuous, spirit-like, characterized by extreme delicacy as form, manner, thought. I think that's chemical sense, pertaining to, derived from, or resembling ether, ethereal salts, oils, a heavy yellow oily liquid consisting essentially of etherin, etherol, and ethyl sulfate is the oily residuum left after etherification, called also the heavy oil of wine. There's also ethereal salt. So it's interesting when you start to look into words, especially I like these two dictionaries just because you get actual history in them. You can get these, they're available online for free. Webster's1913.com and Webster's Dictionary 1828.com. They're free. And it's a great reference to have. So that's kind of, I think we're zoomed in on a topic now. Breath Wars, James Carner's series, flow, information as oxygen, currency, Age of Aquarius, currency, flow. The metaphysics of electricity, the great disassociator. The genealogy of electronic presence begins in the mid-19th century with electricity, the mystical agent of discorporation. Telegraphy first enabled disembodied communion by surgically separating human consciousness from the physical body, allowing for a physical, sorry, that I'm going to probably screw that word up a lot tonight, psychical. That's a psychical connection for us to be able to, for me to send a thought to you. And to, for instance, I would send you a text message. I would write it into a sentence. At least I do. The next generation has to use voice to text because they can't read or write. So I write a sentence or a paragraph of what I want to communicate, and then I send it over the invisible airwaves with my little scrying device to whoever. It could be somebody in China, New Zealand, anywhere. So, I mean, it's not really, when you really start to break it down and think about it, you guys are just watching the stream right now over invisible airwaves. So it's not really that far fetched when you kind of break, you got to go all the way back to the beginning, to the simple, it's almost like the logic that people overlook now. It's like nobody has to think about something that simple because we thought about it a long time ago. And that's not necessarily true, because it's almost like technology's taking us backwards. I'll play a clip on that in a moment. I've got a clip and recommend the documentary by TruthStream Media. They talk about that, how there's a lot of technology that's been hidden, discarded, disposed of. 1844, Samuel Morse. Here's something interesting. Samuel Morse wrote a book on the Jesuits. He was one of the early Jesuit conspiracy writers. The Jesuits are a secret society, a sort of Masonic order with superadded features of revolting odiousness, and 1,000 times more dangerous. Samuel Morse, who is the inventor of the telegraph. So in 1844, Samuel Morse debuts the electromagnetic telegraph, asking, "What hath God wrought?" and initiating the exploratory social deployment of electronic signals. Sorry, I forgot to read this little bit here. That was a good part. I don't want to miss it. This idea that people can communicate from mind to mind. Together in spirit, in communication, and yet in body, 700 miles apart. This environment created a staggering paradox. One was existing at no place or at all places simultaneously. The paradox: one was existing at no place or at all places simultaneously. Very well put. The 1848, the Fox sisters report the Rochester knockings, conceptualizing a spiritual telegraph, an actual technology of the afterlife intended to bridge the temporal spatial void of death. Here we're going to put this clip on because it kind of goes with this right here. Yeah, let's see. I will. Here's the documentary that this clip is from, because it actually is 100% worth checking out. TruthStream Media. The documentary is "We're Being Held Hostage in a Technology Bubble," basically a metaverse. So it's a great documentary, but that's the clip that I'm about to play for you.
Well, it was anyway, until we're told a container ship had a catastrophic power failure and just plowed right into it and collapsed the bridge 2 years ago. And here it is, it's been 2 years, and they're still in the pre-construction phase. And this bridge is not projected to be rebuilt again until October 2028, and it's expected to cost over $2 billion, because they're redesigning it. And that's if it doesn't get pushed back, or that estimate doesn't go up, which it probably will for whatever reason. I'm sure they'll come up with something. On the flip side, you can find time lapses of China building bridges in less than 2 days. And I get it's a different kind of bridge, and maybe we don't want to be that efficient. That seems kind of crazy, maybe unsafe, I don't know. But contrast that to years and years and years, and still no bridge, and money disappearing, and costs going up, and what the hell is even happening anymore? So now what you have is we're slapping down tech like delivery robots on sidewalks that are so crumbling and falling apart that the robots themselves cannot navigate them. So we didn't upgrade our infrastructure at all. We're just going to slap a bunch of robots down on top of it, I guess. It's so bad. And that's when you have a sidewalk, because like I said, there's a lot of places that don't have them at all. Explain it? You can't. It doesn't make sense here. Elon Musk is talking about building Hyperloop. Well, so that's very similar type of technology to the pneumatic tube idea that was Mr. Beach, the Scientific American, in 1870. That's where we're at. It's really like nothing ever changes and everything just gets worse all the time, and it has been for decades and decades and decades, while technologies that would be cleaner, more efficient, and just all around better for the people using it and the environment that it's being used in just disappear all the time. They just disappear continuously. We're just now getting to the part where like, oh, what about this technology that just keeps getting rediscovered and buried and rediscovered and buried, and we just never end up with it though. It just keeps disappearing, and the status quo, it's just being militantly enforced upon us. This government has now spent over $60 billion on this war, just since February 28th. And that amount goes up $1 billion a day.
Imagine in Iran that instead of spending their wealth, billions of dollars supporting terrorists or weapons, had spent that money helping the people of Iran, you'd have a much different country.
They got the money for things like a war, or a gold ballroom, or like a giant triumphal arch in DC that no one wants that looks totally tacky as hell. But we don't have the money for bringing our country into the 21st century. This is a joke, okay? Because there's just trillions of dollars that has disappeared somewhere here into a black hole.
But governments can't die. So we need to find other incentives for bureaucracy to adapt and improve. The technology revolution has transformed organizations across the private sector. But not ours, not fully, not yet. Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And when you start talking about that, you really get attacked for it. But come on, guys, like it is not, there's only so many vacation houses and yachts that someone can buy.
That was a really good film. So here it is again, Truth Stream Media. I'm going to put the link in the post and everything. And R. Gerder said, you even called it, you said, I'm thinking our technology is designed to de-evolve humanity. And it has happened many times already. Really, it's fascinating. And haunting. It's absolutely haunting, because pause for one moment and let me draw your attention to September 10th, 2001. The subject of Rumsfeld's speech was that technology is going to be the way that we're going to keep this scam going. It's going to evolve, and it's not going to be able to be destroyed. Okay, well, there's this album, The Disintegration Loops, which I've showed and talked about before. It's a series of 4 albums by musician William Basinski, released in 2002 and 2003. It was created using tape loops, composed of magnetic tape, and it would, loop the tape and record the same thing from itself. There's a video that actually was like a VHS of that. I'm going to see if I can find that really quick. Yeah, it's very eerie. And so this was completed on September 11th. September 11th. Which is just pretty interesting. Here it is.
Hi,
You bring it up.
I'm Jeffrey Riddle. What you are about to see is an example of recursive VHS degradation. Right now, you are looking at generation 1. The picture and the sound are still completely clean. But if we switch over to a second generation copy, we see the apparent loss in picture quality, and the sound has now also lost in clarity. If we continue this trend, more and more generational loss will take its toll on the recording. Shall we begin?
So yeah, there's some nightmare fuel for you. It's very.
In this tutorial,
It's
I'm going to
just.
tell you how to turn.
Oh, my apologies. Let's see. It's just interesting that this album was completed on September 11th. And it's a bit haunting when you look back at it, because there was that weird period between, January 1st, 2000 and September 11th, 2001. If you go back and you just kind of look at what was going on, just a weird, eerie presence. There's like a presence, like, it's because you know what happened. Like you know from the future, and it's just haunting. So the historical proximity of Morse and the Fox sisters reveals that in the 19th century there was virtually no distinction between the domains of physics. There it was again. No, that was physics. That was physics. I thought that was psychic. That's going to be a trip tonight. Okay, psychics and physics. Between the domains of physics and metaphysics, to talk to the absent via dots and dashes. It was functionally equivalent to talking to the dead via raps or knocking. Both relied on the logic of electrical channeling to facilitate telepresence, a concept built upon three distinct liquid metaphors. So, three types of flow. Electronic presence is sustained by the imagined convergence of three flowing agents. In the media archaeological view, these agents are seen as homogeneous and transmutable, allowing the viewer and the medium to merge into an undifferentiated complex. This is probably similar to transference. So transference used in the sense that whenever you, if you're really engaged in a story or a movie or even music, the point where you kind of merge with the narrator, like you put yourself into the character's shoes, that is transference. And that's kind of how that is the number one reason why it's used for programming. It's because that sneaks it past the conscious mind. Normally, your conscious mind that you're aware of acts as kind of like a barrier, like a firewall. So to suspend disbelief is kind of letting that guard down. It sneaks it into the subconscious mind. So electronic presence is sustained by the convergence of three flowing agents. The type of flow on the left, the definition and the metaphor. First is the electrical flow. This is the physical current that animates technology, here's Mr. James Clerk Maxwell. We all know Maxwell's demon thought experiment. So he noted famously that the limits of this current as a mere explanatory term. So he was just using it to explain. The metaphor, a life force or a divine spark that facilitates the mechanical dissociation of the soul. Information flow, the unending, undifferentiated stream of data. Raymond Williams defined this flow as the essential characteristic of broadcasting. A textual procession that erodes the boundaries of referentiality. The final flow is consciousness, the human thought process. William James coined the stream of consciousness to describe this liquidity of the mind. It's an extension of the nervous system, as famously posited by Marshall McLuhan. So, electricity, information, consciousness. And pretty much that's what the Breath Wars, James's Breath Wars series is about. Those three things right there are pretty much the basis of all of the books. So I'm noting that to draw everybody's attention to the fact that I found these results. James found these results. And apparently, let's just look at the text that we're presenting today and whatever else the viewer may have seen. I'm not sure how many have seen every video or which ones you've seen, but it seems like other people have had very similar ideas. So I look for something like that as a testament to, I guess you could say, reproducible results, but we're observing the same reality fundamentally. Energy harvesting, and then there's something to do with flow, and the flow is kind of electrical, kind of information, and kind of consciousness. And then James says that it's the divine breath, the breath of God. People call it louche. I don't use that term, though. I don't use that term because I think it's a fake out term. So the logic of transmutation. These flows are considered transmutable because the logic of electricity allows the public imagination to believe that human thought can be converted into electronic signals. We do not merely watch media, we fuse with it, transference, exchanging our consciousness for information through the mediating current of the machine. The three recurring fictions of media presence. Over 150 years, three consistent representational strategies have served as a permeable language to express our evolving relationship with this technology. The first is disembodiment and teleportation. The fantasy of discorporation, where the communicating subject leaves the physical body to transport consciousness to a distant destination. This ranges from Baron Munchausen's adventures to the digital beaming of the self. You could, astral projection is probably the same thing. 2, sovereign electronic worlds. Video games. The premise of an electronic elsewhere. A self-sustaining meta. That pops up a lot too. Meta means beyond, but in Hebrew, meta means she is dead. It's the feminine form. So, meta, well, that's a word I don't know. So let's see if I can find it, a definition for it. Digestus, narration or narrative, to narrate. Inner monologue, I guess you could say. So meta, meaning beyond that. So it's like, I guess you could say, one level above an inner monologue. So that realm, such as television land or cyberspace, these are utopian or dystopian spaces, accessed rather than merely viewed. And this does actually match the CCRU, Nick Land, and the Gothic materialist fiction, because they also believe in or write about something called the Crypt, the dark twin of the net, characterized by intensive K. That prefix has to do with ketamine, is what I believe. Ketamine, drug substance abuse, which is a dissociative drug. It is actually a very unique, from a chemical standpoint, it is in a unique class of drugs. It is a dissociative. So they have a term called a death. Got that one too. Yeah, here it is. A death. It is a subterranean. The crypt is a subterranean, soft labyrinth buried deep within the primal sediment of the infoplex. It operates as a plane of unlife, where the operational identity of culture and machinery is realized by dismantling the organic body into numerizing particles, means data. Here's a death, unlife. Neuro electronic flatline, based on Sarconian mesh engineering. That's mesh in the background. And subculturally propagated by K-Goth activity throughout the crypt. It represents an experiment in artificial death and hyper production of the positive zero plane. It shatters the biological illusion of mortality, revealing an anorganic continuum that completely envelops and pushes infinitely beyond the so-called living. It operates as a non-zone of absolute betweenness, where human subjectivity is liquefied into Cthulhuoid continuum hypermatter. What is flatline? A state of absolute desolation crossing infinity as loss of signal, life reaching maximum materialization, or the terminal point of spirit descending into matter, so the veil. It represents an experiment in artificial death, neuroelectronic immanence, or the point of identity shutdown, where organic redundancy is stripped away. It represents a transition from human organic life to the inorganic continuum, or K-space. It functions as the positive zero plane of artificial death, where the biological individual is decimated by terminal flux and market values drop to zero, potentially allowing for reanimation through speculation. Note the words there. By terminal market values drop to zero. So this is an organism wherein a pulse or blood circulation is akin to liquidity. And they hide it behind this weird, it's almost like people are like, they think it's goofy, but you have to pay attention to the words. They're communicating something, but it's being disguised. So this is from this CCRU. One moment. From the CCRU and Nick Land and the K-Gothic, Cyber Gothic, who set up the cyberpunk movement back in the 1990s, Timothy Leary, all of these people. This is their mythology. Finally, anthropomorphizing technology, the belief in sentient media, the ghosts in the machine. This manifests in the living television set that demands a murder, or the contemporary obsession with the cyborg and android. While these stories are structurally consistent, their content has shifted from a focus on technical wonder to a preoccupation with textual simulation. From DX fishing to hyper reality. That was, I think that was a term coined by them as well. Let's see if I have hyperreality. I don't have an image for hyperreality. Hyperreality is, here, let's see, I've got hypernaturalism, an intensification of naturalism that treats the universe as a harmonious mechanism where the visible is a manifestation of the invisible, a worldview where the distinction between vitalism and mechanism collapses. It views nature as a pitiless killing machine or a technosphere embedded in human nervous systems. It treats natural laws as programmed circuits, destiny, and suggests that spiritual phenomena can be calculated with the precision of physical phenomena. It frames the environment as a technical construct. This is called cybernetic realism and suggests a radical dehumanization of nature, where human personality is merely the excrement of matter. So hypernaturalism and hyperrealism, let's just put it this way, they're used in the same sense if you follow what I mean. Let's see. Yeah, so from DX fishing to hyperreality. The experience of electronic presence has evolved from a tool of contact to a totalizing environment of envelopment. Early media, point-to-point, exploratory social deployment focused on the DX fisherman searching for fleeting signals. Frontier logic, attempting to contact distant real worlds, such as extraterrestrials on Mars or spirits in the afterlife. Modern media, mass broadcasting, all-enveloping force. Presence is no longer a signal we find, it is a net or web that we're caught with. The shadow world simulation replaces reality, leading to a hyper-reality, where life and television dissolve into one another. The 1938 War of the Worlds broadcast stands as the definitive transition point. It was not merely a panic over Martians, but a panic over the suffocating presence of the network voice. Listeners experienced the end of the media, the simulated live dismantling of the very network authority that they had internalized as an omniscient consciousness. The materiality of the ghost. We must ultimately conclude that presence is a variable social construct, not an essential property of the material machine. We ascribe mystical powers to our wires and pixels to navigate the profound dissociative relationship between our bodies and the void of space-time. Electronic presence is a cultural fantasy generated around telecommunications, despite 150 years of supernatural speculation. From the Fox sister spiritual wrappings to the seeking of immortality in modern computer chips, we are always left with the material machine at the heart of the ghost story. The ghost is never in the machine, it is in our collective habit of mistaking the exploratory social deployment of technology for a metaphysical truth. In the end, we remain anchored to the terrestrial world, even as our metaphors drift into the ether. And I've got another clip that probably would go well right now. Let me put that in. A lot of people didn't catch this, but there were some very smart people who did realize that all the way back when technology first made it onto the scene. Now I just got to find the video. Here it is.
Towards computing, which is to say, I find parts of computing and networks to be very useful, to be handy, to be necessary at times, but I find a great deal of it to be boring, uninteresting, and useless. It is not computers that bother me. Hey, I love computers. I own a half dozen computers. I like computers. It's not computers that bother me, no. It's this cult of computing, this culture that says if you don't have an email site, if you don't have your own website and a home page developed, if you don't have your own customized domain on the internet, then you're backwards. You're being left at the station. Train of progress is leaving and you're on the platform. It's this idea that says, hey, you got to get online to be somebody. I don't believe it. Data isn't information. Information, unlike data, information has content, accuracy, utility, timeliness, pedigree, a sense of, I know where it came from. The internet provides lots and lots of unreviewed, unedited gunk, press releases, unreviewed paragraphs that somebody wrote, posted, and you don't know where it's from. Information, on the contrary, you know where it came from. You know who did it. You know who's responsible for it. You know that somebody has checked it for accuracy.
Even more important, says Stoll, is the inherently fraudulent social atmosphere of the web. Users can organize worldwide by interest and can chat endlessly online, a setting that gives the outward appearance of promoting dialogue and understanding. But the time spent on the computer is generally time spent in solitude, rather than interacting face-to-face with another person.
Look on campuses and ask around for people who are internet addicts. I spoke to the mother of a 19-year-old guy, junior in college, important university in Pennsylvania. He gets up in the morning, logs in, has lunch occasionally, dinner occasionally, and logs off in the evening. He has missed all of his classes for the past semester and a half. He's gotten F's in everything he registered for last semester because he spent all of his time online. He has lots and lots of friends in Sweden who he's never met, but exchanges pictures by way of the web. He knows lots of stuff about the city of Uppsala, but nothing about the campus that he's on because he doesn't leave the building that he's in. Is this what we're trying to teach our students?
Stoll says the lack of true social interaction in the computer age is not only harmful outside the classroom, but inside as well. The public demand for computers in schools is fueled, he says, by a completely misguided notion that the mere presence of the machines will somehow make children smarter.
This is just one of what I consider many myths that seem so attractive. All we have to do is plug into this wonderful information highway and our kids will be smart. All we have to do is get high-tech computers in the classroom and our students will learn so much more because they'll have an enjoyable time of it all. All we have to do is get a CD-ROM with an encyclopedia on it and our kids will have so much information. They'll do great on their SAT exams. These, of course, are myths.
So, so it's just really people who you have to see these things. It's just this. It's not necessarily just limited to technology. It's like maybe you've seen somebody who's suffered with a certain vice or something like that. It's like you see what it does to somebody. Those are the things that if you don't have those, for instance, if you work in like a executive office and you have people who drive you around and you live in a gated community, you don't see things like that. And so I think that is a big reason why we have this divide that we do now. So let's take a look on a thematic overview here. Media uncanniness. In the early 1950s, actually, you know what? Let's see if I have. I don't have it on here. I was going to see if I could find that one on the elimination of television, but I don't have it on here, so I'll have to do that another time. But yeah, the New York Times documented 3 seemingly disparate curiosities that, when viewed through the lens of media history, reveal a profound cultural anxiety regarding the liveness of the television set. These stories suggest that from its inception, the public did not view the electronic screen as mere hardware, but as an interstitial, sentient entity capable of entering the social and psychical life of the home. The TV Assassin, 1952, Frank Walsh of Long Island, driven to mania by the volume of an Abbott and Costello episode, famously stilled in his television set by firing a .38 caliber revolver in the screen. This act was framed in the press as a form of self-defense. Sorry, throat got dry there. An act of self-defense against an intruding house guest. The Professional Justice Man, 1953. Richard Gowan stormed the CBS studios armed with kitchen knives, stabbing a cameraman. Gowan claimed the broadcasts were not merely scandalous, but were slandering him personally, treating the network as a direct, intimate interlocutor. That reminds me, I've got all these different things that I've saved up over just over the last couple months, and it reminds me of different things that I've seen, so I show them to you. Here's another interesting example of just this happening.
Mail order. Pardon me? What is this? Let me see what it says. All right. All right, well, let me read this. Folks, we have someone on the set who's standing here and would like me to read this copy which was just handed to me. You want to tell me your name or not? What is it? And Gary, where are you from?
At that point, the control room was ordered to go to black, kill the studio mics, and put up a standby slide. But Horowitz continued to read, and the gunman kept the gun in his back.
I was warned in 1981 by someone with connections at the CIA to stay off the computers, that they didn't trust people on computers. Calls from my parents, which led me to believe that something terrible was going on. I was then forced into a mental hospital in Tallahassee, where I learned that my brother-in-law had been driven insane in the same manner that someone was trying to do to me.
Police, who by then had entered the facilities, made plans to deal with the situation. But when the statement had been read, the gunman placed the gun on the desk and anchorman John Beard grabbed it. And to the floor. He has been identified as Gary Stolman, and he said he never intended to harm anyone. Indeed, the gun proved a fake. But Stolman may still face a variety of charges. He is the son of pharmacist Max Stolman, a former member of the Channel 4 News team reporting on medicine and related issues. Max Stolman said, "I do have a sick son. He has been hospitalized a number of times. I am thankful he wasn't killed."
It's pretty interesting because it's like if you would have looked at that like 2 years ago, it probably would have been crazier. But then if you look at it like now, and according to the government, actually, there's no conspiracy theory. Aliens are real. UFOs and aliens are real now. So that's not a conspiracy theory. That's actually just the truth now. So it's just crazy. It's like you look at this and it's like, I think what was happening, I'm basing what I'm saying here off of Bill Cooper. Bill Cooper originally, as his story, when he recounts his story, says that he saw, like when he was in the Navy, he saw something kind of coming up out of the ocean. And again, this was kind of like an experience that would stick with you if you witnessed it. However, after he began doing a lot of research and writing the book Behold a Pale Horse, and Bill Cooper got into the UFO community, and then he changed course. He said that perhaps this was actually technology that was so far advanced that it could be used to convince people that it's alien or magical technology. And so as I watch this clip, what I think is, what if the military was running a psychological experiment first on the people in the military, because you test it out with your own people first. That's just the way they do business. It's actually really crazy, but that's just their MO. You see them do this over and over and over again. So they make sure that this will drive people insane sufficiently. And then what they're doing back in, this looks like the 80s, probably the 80s sometime. Now here in 2026, they're rolling this out for everybody. And it's going to be done. After reading the 6G white paper, after reading Project Soulcatcher, I did a few videos reading the first chapter of that, where Robert Duncan, Dr. Robert Duncan, who's now dead, he's passed away now. A lot of people rightly believe that it was probably murder. He's probably killed. I mean, why not? He was writing a book about how computer hacking is perfectly analogous to human biohacking. And so I did a series of videos on that. So after doing that, after researching meta-atoms and meta-photonics and meta-crystals and soul tokens and INFTs, the more and more I learn, I really think I'm on the side of this being a psyop. I think this is a leveraging of technology being indistinguishable from magic. That was what Arthur C. Clarke said, that any sufficiently advanced technology would be indistinguishable from magic. And I think they are betting on people being at a level of, guess you could say, unawareness or ignorance, and not willing or able to go and read a scientific journal. I think they're hedging their bets that people will think it's alien or magic or whatever. But you have to understand, the way that this operates is that it's actually a big story. The story is what they're leveraging and betting everything on. And so, for instance, let's just say that all of the elections are just rigged, like all of the U.S. elections are just rigged. I think that they have a vested interest in making us think they're legit, because I think if they unite on one goal, all we have to do is that one thing. Doesn't matter anything else, but the number one thing is they have to believe that the thing is real. And I think it's almost a way to constrain the goal, almost to set the goal in such a way that it can be sustained for a long period of time. I came across a series of volumes. I think I can pull them up. Yeah, here it is. I'm not gonna go like crazy into these now, but these volumes, there's like 5 of these, and it talks about how they set up these stories and these, for instance, they will create a legend. They will create a mythological legend, and somebody will set it up. The people who write the mythology will set the characters up with certain attributes, certain items. They will go to certain locations. They will get married in a certain geographical monument or coordinate. They'll basically script their lives. And in doing this, they will then communicate these secrets through the ages, i.e. the guardians of the secrets of the ages. All of the Holy Grail, the Knights Templar, all of those groups, what they're doing is they are preserving these tokens and these passwords, because when their timer is up, the snakes consume their own mythology or their own tales. The snakes consume or fulfill their own mythology, their own tales. And so they will have the information necessary to make prophecy come true, and thereby use that to create the new system and then do the whole thing again. And it is a you know, the Ouroboros, but it is a snake eating its own tail, because it can't be still. It has to keep moving, you know, because if they do just like if they just do this once and somebody loses the information, aka that which is lost, the lost word, oh dang it, they all forgot the password and now we're screwed. But the idea is that they have to keep this going, because the system will eventually come crumbling down, but they have to have a means to get a new one going. And it's almost like a springboarding effect. And it's because they know how to fulfill the like they know how to stage the new play. It's very it is almost it's so advanced. The way that this is set up, it's so perplexingly advanced that there's really not, I don't even really know if anybody could, I don't know, it's just so grand. It's hard, like, what if you did do that? But, yeah, I will have to do a video on these sometime. Hidden King of England. The British Exarch. But yeah, that's pretty much the way that this machinery functions. And I think that is the idea of principality. Honestly, I think that this is some type of entity, because that movement, the fact that it's moving, it's not still. That is, I guess, that enables it to exist within the domain of time. And yeah, these anecdotes, all of them, everything we've talked about tonight, demonstrate a pervasive cultural mythology. It's all a mythology. It's all storyline. That's the way that we as human beings, we operate on stories. That's why if you want to communicate in that dimension, or that if you want to be able to access it, you have to use as a vehicle, as a means, as a vehicle to do it. You have to use story, or there are other words that may apply. Narrative, story, transference, prose, anecdote. Mythology that treats the electronic media as living and animate. This liveness creates a fundamental uncanniness. The machine is viewed as a sentient house guest that can be murdered, a confidant that can betray us, or a haunted gateway for the media occult. This mid-century fascination with the sentient television set is merely one chapter in a 150-year-old historical trajectory regarding the metaphysical presence of electronic signals. Remember, electricity, information, consciousness. Disembodiment, teleportation. The belief that media can transport human consciousness beyond the physical body to a distant destination. There's always a false promise. Ultimate liberation. Where have I heard that one before? The ability to travel at the speed of light or contact the afterlife. The horror. Permanent dissolution of the body, becoming a phantom trapped in the wires. Sovereign electronic worlds, the creation of an electronic elsewhere, a self-sustaining realm such as television land or cyberspace. The horror, trapped in electronic oblivion or a vast wasteland that is more real than terrestrial geography. anthropomorphization, casting technology as sentient interlocutor or a ghost in the machine. The promise, perfect interactivity, a machine that acts as an extension of the nervous system. The horror, it's actually a malevolent entity that exerts a narcotizing hypnosis over a zombified audience. We are living in The Walking Dead now, and it's very creepy. It's like I don't even think there's much denying it anymore. It's like there's so much about it. It's zombie-ish because people are moving in herds now. That is, as we've talked about over the last couple of nights, the beehive and talking about fungal networks and mycelial networks, mesh, spin, and splice. So the idea that people are moving in swarms, there is a aspect of this malevolent entity that is, the golem is another example of this. Got that handy still. Let's see. The golem. It's you see it, it's it's like, for instance, you see people get like canceled over something, like just it's random stuff, and somebody gets canceled, and it's like they're gonna go back to like the 13th generation in their family and like get them fired and like harass them, and like it's just like, it's insane. It's like this weird zombie pack mob devouring a person, but like not just in body, almost in name, and in the group mind and the zeitgeist. It's true, and man, the more that I think about it, the more that I'm starting to see, and the more all you got to really do is go outside anymore and drive around, and you will see people. People are getting ballsy when they're driving. People are trying to take a lot of risks, and I don't think it's a risky economy lately. I'm not sure who's taking risks in this economy, but that's the thing. It's like we're at a point now where you can't really you can't apply logic to it, because it's like what they're doing is just insane, and you can't reason with insanity. So you can't really even apply, because the human mind tries to reach for a logical conclusion, because that's like if you're drowning, you have to reach for something like land or stable, to pull yourself up. So the mind reaches out for meaning and rationality, but you can't apply that to what we're dealing with now. While the fictions remain constant, their social application is always tied to specific technology and engendered power structures of the era. That's true. It's getting bad. Scorpion says it's bad too. Here, I found this as well, by the way. 4 arguments for the elimination of television. It is by Jerry Mander. Jerry Mander. That's funny. I wonder if that's the guy's real name. It's from 1977 or 78. I'm going to scroll through the table of contents, but I did want to show you the book so you knew what the name was. Yeah, interestingly enough, if you're interested in the earliest research on this, because remember, this is around the time that the Telegraph and when electricity and the telegraph started to come into daily life and were invented. They called it animal magnetism and obviously mesmerism, Franz Mesmer. So this has gone by many different names, but for people who think this is a new concept, it's not a new concept. This originally was called animal magnetism. This is 1978 again, remember. So a lot of people did know. And remember, James also has mentioned this idea of the image. That is a term that pops up repeatedly, image, but in the connotation of like face, somebody's image. The replacement, again, James said the same similar concept, replacement of human images by television. So the argument, I'm sorry, I was just kind of reading through everything else, but the arguments, the 4 arguments that he puts forward, the mediation of experience is argument 1. Argument 2 is the colonization of experience. Argument 3 is the effects of television on the human being. And argument 4 is the inherent biases of television. Those are his 4 arguments. If you guys go and follow me on my Odyssey channel, because you can actually, I can upload files on Odyssey, and so I can probably share this text on there if anybody's interested. I'll put up the link to Odyssey real quick. It was actually up. That's funny. Yeah, I can upload like files and stuff on there, so I'll put this up there for anybody who would like it. So yeah, that 4 arguments. People have caught this before. It's not like this is a new thing. People just didn't listen. Unfortunately, that some people did. I mean, the people who are here listening tonight probably listened because you're here and you're aware of what's going on. But that's the word. That's probably the thing that grinds my gears the most. Is it's like people are just now waking up barely to it, and it's like people have literally been talking about this since long enough that a guy did a vinyl record expose on vinyl record back in 1967. That's how long they've been trying to warn about what's going on now. And so it's like now that the government tells you it's okay to believe in Epstein then and aliens, then we're going to do it. It's just, but okay, let's get through the rest of this and then we'll finish up tonight. The spiritual telegraph and gendered power. In the 1840s, Samuel Morse's electromagnetic telegraph in 1844 and the modern spiritualism movement, 1848, emerged simultaneously. Spiritualists believed the dead were using a spiritual telegraph to contact the living. This is a quote from 1857's account of telepresence. Quote, "We published the following account of a meeting at no place or at all places where there were telegraph offices, the members together in spirit in communication and yet in body 700 miles apart. The gendered medium, the female wire. In the media occult of the 19th century, the medium was not just a person, but a technology of the gendered body, because women and adolescent girls, like the Fox sisters, were thought to possess a plastic and sensitive, I think that's probably with the connotations, probably plastique and sensitive electrical constitution. And sensitive electrical constitution, that means that they're like a spark. You get too close, you're going to get zapped. They were viewed as the literal wires through which the nervous energy of the spirit world flowed. Political expression. By entering a mediumistic trance, women could dissociate their gendered bodies from the patriarchal realm. This allowed them to use the telegraphic voices of the dead to advocate for radical political causes. That is an interesting little note. EW Productions says, this reminds you of the mirrors that they used to cover up mirrors. That's true, and I don't know how many people will even recognize it. But for some reason, when you said that, it's something that I know what you mean. I have no clue why they did that, and it's a good question. I have to figure that out sometime. Huh, interesting. That's food for thought. Thank you. Yeah, it says this allowed women to use the telegraphic voices of the dead to advocate for radical political causes such as universal suffrage, reproductive rights, and marital equality. That's interesting that this book brought it up, because there's another book that was cited. It was like one of the citations in a book on the New Age movement, the Avignon Society. And the subtitle of this book is Lucifer as the Liberator of Women in 19th Century Culture by Per Foxnald, I guess. So that's interesting that this has come up in two different places. So apparently, women were using telegraphic voices of the dead to advocate for radical political causes. As the century turned, the imagery of the wire gave way to much more vast and isolating metaphor of the ocean, which is, let's see, Britannia, the namesake of Britain, obviously, but they forgot. See, I don't even know what this is. Ocean. The index is weird sometimes. Let's go to Wikipedia. Yes, Britannia with the trident is the ruler of the ocean. Helmeted female warrior holding a trident and a shield. Britannia was the name variously applied to the British Isles during the Roman Empire. The Roman Britannia was typically depicted reclining or seated with not a trident but a spear and shield appearing on Roman coins. The idea being the ruler of the sea. And the ancient, before there was ever the Dante's Inferno, fire and brimstone hell, the ocean, the ancient people understood that the ocean was the realm of the dead. That's why the child molesters are thrown into the ocean with a millstone around the neck. That's why it's the ocean. And the trident is a unique symbol. It is associated with Neptune. And I've only ever seen this variation of the fasci with a trident instead of an axe head on the stagecoach of the monarch, the British monarch, which is an interesting, seeing as this is the only place this symbol pops up, it's interesting. The commentary is the ruler of hell, basically, the ruler of the underworld. Money is currency. Britain rules the seas, and so banking and finance. Perhaps that's just a guess. Yes, absolutely, chaos and disorder. So the mirror thing had to do with the way glass was manufactured. It used to be a more ritualistic tradecraft process. And that's right, and it was a Venetian craft. That's a very interesting connection, because Venetian banking was set up in Venice for a very long time, at least during the Byzantine Empire, and then they moved to primarily Britain. Webster Tarpley is a pretty good person to listen to on that, or Lyndon LaRouche. But then I have a series that I uploaded on Substack, the Palmerston Zoo series, that talks about how Palmerston, who was Prime Minister of Britain, along with Giuseppe Mazzini and a bunch of other people around at that time, had really created a globalist movement of their day. It was like what's going on in Europe now, but it was like their version of that 100 years ago. Second case study, from the etheric ocean to the network blanket. Transition from early wireless to centralized network broadcasting shifted the perception of electronic presence from contact to enclosure. So the then versus now of radio presence. The wireless era, the early 1900s, the etheric ocean. The activity is DX fishing. This is the search for distant, stray, and mysterious signals. The feeling is a melancholy isolation, a wonder at contacting a distant, fleeting frontier. The network era, 1920s through 30s. The metaphor is a network blanket. The routine, cyclical consumption of a broadcast schedule. Feeling a suffocating presence of an omnipresent, omniscient force watching over the nation. Yeah, that's a good. Well, the Ethereum chain has got to be used for the soul tokens, because they don't want to use proof of work, because you need to do a lot of math and you got to use a lot of computers and you need a lot of chips. They actually are just going to they're just going to give the ledger to whoever's got the most money. Whoever's got the most money to do proof of stake, you can just control the ledger. So it's like, it seems like they're just like taking all of the benefit out of it and just like, okay, we're not going to keep the good part. We're just going to use the bad part. So, yeah, but it's interesting connection. Perhaps that is has an esoteric background, because they do have something called the Noah's Ark Metaverse, the Althea project, or Althea or whatever. The War of the Worlds Panic radio broadcast 1938 was not a fear of aliens, but a panic over the dismantling of the network voice. Listeners who heard the empire of the air collapse into rubble were terrified, because they had internalized the network as a higher, all-seeing authority. The panic was the result of a simulated destruction at the very force that blanketed their reality. Case study 3, television land and electronic oblivion. With television, electronic presence gained a visual dimensionality that led to the perception of the medium as a sinister space within the home. Television as an extension of sight, initially marketed as a way to extend vision across distances. Television quickly became an uncanny space. Viewers reported being absorbed into the set, falling under a narcotizing hypnosis. So people, it's what I gather is that people recognized. And the truth is I think kind of back, a lot of our parents and grandparents had that initial feeling like, oh, they shouldn't be on the phones and technology a lot. You know, obviously when you're young, you didn't, or like, oh, it's no big deal. You should just let me do it for a little bit longer or whatever. But it's like everybody kind of understands from the beginning. It feels weird from the start. So it's like there is something about it that is bad or evil and off-putting enough that we recognize it almost with, it's like if you've never even seen it before. There's a weird thought, but back in psychology, we learned about how they were very interested in seeing how long it took a baby to recognize like you know, the edge of a cliff or something. So what they would do is like they would build like an optical illusion, and it was like it would have a glass pane, and then they would try to set up a study with different aged like babies and children and toddlers to see what age did they recognize like you might be falling off a cliff, like you need to like back up. And it's kind of fascinating, but it's almost like you recognize the danger without ever having seen it or been exposed to it before. So I guess you have to contend then with it definitely having been an almost evolutionary trait, or just I guess you could say you had to have developed that to survive. Television is an uncanny space. The ghost in the machine, early viewers often noted the slowly fading dot of light on old picture tubes after the set was turned off. This blip served as a concrete reminder of the ghost in the machine. The sense that something remained in the cabinet even after the image vanished. The metatextual empire. Unlike the singular focus of cinema, television subjectively is rudely switched from channel to channel. That's an important note. The difference between cinema and television is that television, you kind of rudely switch from channel to channel, which creates a flowing metatextual empire where the real social world is displaced by the meta-digestic or digestic, I don't know how to pronounce that, procession of television land. The electronic oblivion. This is the point where the simulation becomes so pervasive that it displaces the real social world, threatening to consume real culture and real life entirely. So this idea of simulation, remember we talked about surrogate models and digital twin models. That would be an example. So we're going to finish up here and wrap everything up. So the shift from technology to textuality. That's a word worth looking up. Let's see if I can find it. Containing text, textual criticism, textual reading, serving for or depending on text, familiar with text or authorities so as to cite them accurately. The 150-year history of haunted media reveals a clear evolution. Our fascination has moved from the machine, the physical wire, to the text, the simulation. The cyber subject, the final iteration of this dream is the cyber subject, or slave, basically, feudal serf, an entity purged of history, the social order, and the material world, living entirely within the simulation. The cyber subject represents the culmination of the 1840s dream of talking to the dead over a wire, a subject finally liberated from the annoying contact of material reality. We did also cover ontology. I'll put the definition up for that. Ontology. Ancient people understood that the persistence of the dead was a literal biological threat, an ontology of the glitch. In ancient Mesopotamia, they understood that a ghost, or an itimu, was a structural error in the land of the living, a wind or breath trapped in a sub-zero state of existence, condemned to eating clay and drinking dust. This is the exact spiritual mechanic behind the modern legal strawman and CCRU trust. By creating a corporate all-caps fiction and treating the living flesh as meta, which means dead, the system converts the citizen into a modern atimu, become a pure memory trace without processing power, a presence of absence. The legal and financial system acts as the ultimate lost future described by philosopher Mark Fisher, a stagnant, repetitive existence where true progress is impossible because the population is trapped in a loop of hunger. Hunger Games. So, they pretty much admit just that. A summary of the evolutionary shifts and telegraphy. Disembodied communion via a physical wire, wireless, dispersed consciousness across an etheric ocean, broadcasting membership in an invisible audience under a network blanket. The telesubject or the cyber subject, a virtual entity living in a state of hyperreality, evacuated of history and physical form. Despite the magical fictions of the virtual age, we must always remember that at the heart of the speculation lies a material machine, a device mechanically assembled and socially deployed with a specific tangible moment in history. Absolutely. Juxtaposition, yeah. He was the one who, because we did a bunch of shows together. We did some shows on the what did he call them? The Strategic Hamlet Project. The Strategic Hamlet Project in Vietnam. And that was basically the Hunger Games in Vietnam. And so he started calling them the Hunger Games. And the Hunger Games is pretty much what we're living through right now. What we've been living through. And it's really getting to the point of actual Hunger Games because people are unable to afford basic necessities at this point. Food is just getting insane. So it's hunger in like all the different levels, honestly. It's not just like food hunger. It's like, you hunger for something that's not around anymore. But I'm curious to know what everybody thinks, or questions, comments, thoughts, concerns. Please leave those in the comments section. James will be back tomorrow. Please hit the like button, hit the follow button. Everybody say a prayer for Boots and his wife. Make sure that they hopefully have some good news coming in soon. I hope that everything works out in your favor and things can improve as quickly as possible. I truly do. So, and I hope the best to everybody else in the audience, obviously, of course. And it's been really a great time. I've enjoyed being your guest host for this week, and you'll probably see me again soon. We're going to do an episode, James and I. I told him that I would like to get his thoughts on the Age of Deceit parallels to the Breath Wars series. So we're going to possibly do that in the near future. Maybe in the next week or so, but he'll be back to host the show tomorrow night. And I'm sure that he'll have something great planned for everybody. So I appreciate each and every one of you. And I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good night. Peace.